implementations now, right? So we will need a couple of libraries, which means that I think it's time we should just start adding the dependencies first, and then we pick the other things. Okay, so reagent, we need reagent version 1.2.0. I can get it from the clojures. Just go to the reagent clojures and copy learning and group, because in the shadow-cljs, where you are adding the dependencies, it needs to be a vector. Need a reframe. There is a relation as well, I believe, but reframe is 1.3.0, and let's add that as well. These two dependencies are added. Now that is on the Clojure script side. Now you need the Java dependencies or the JavaScript dependencies as well, which means that I should maybe launch a new terminal and try to bring those other dependencies as well, right? Let's see. What I need React. Yes. We'll come to that later. We'll come to okay. So npm add React, the React DOM. I think these are the two which are mandatorily required. Once I'm done with npm add npm install, if I would have done it, fine. Once these two dependencies are added, you will see them in the package JSON, and then you will also need to add a couple of more dependencies. We'll see which. Yeah, so we got two dependencies, and there is some new change happened after React 17, or I think in the React 18, where you need to add one more dependency, create React class or something. Uh, create React class, it is the name of the dependency, right? I'm just adding that dependency as well. So this is required to create the reagent, the React class DOM client. And okay, so all these three dependencies are there now. We have all the things in place for us to get started with the actual development now. So this is my root node. Oh, there is one important thing which we should also cover is that whatever we are doing here, right? So you might not be able to see certain times that your file is not loading properly. Even though you have compiled and everything, we'll just show you right now. See. Now see, in this case, there is no message coming, and it will happen when you don't have proper script tag defined in the body section of the HTML, which is loaded by the browser. So once the script file contains, once your HTML file contains the correct script file, it will load and render it. Great. So let's start with mm, let's start with creating the. We have to first capture the root node. So right now this is the root node. So how React normally works is that it picks one of the node and then virtually modifies the DOM. The virtual DOMs are modified with the code on the fly. So we will create certain things related to it. Okay. So I'll say I'll require reagent of code as our. That's how we should be able to do it. And we will also need the reagents to planet. So these are a couple of things which are normally uh, so reagent DOM client as RDC. So reagent DOM client is the one which is used to generate, right? So I'll have my render method created. So this is my custom render method, which I will use. And in this method, I should maybe define a root node. Now I'll capture a root node using RDC, and I'll say RDC create a root using. So this is the syntax which we are going to use, where we are saying that I want to access a JS document by element. Okay. Get element by ID, and the ID of my document in this case is root-node. So I will say root-node. So this will capture the root node now, which is stored in the binding called root. And I have this root binding available, which I just wanted to render with some new function. Let's say I'll say weapon my main layout. I will just call it as main layout. And now I'm going to use some hiccup syntax. So hiccup syntax basically suggests that I can write HTML code in a clojure data structure format, and that format is something which will be used here. And now I have access to this. I can do a couple of things. One is I will see JS console.log and see that this is updating the root node. This should get called. And then whenever it is getting called, I'll say that I want to render the root, which is the root node I have captured here. So there's the root variable which is bounded. And I want to replace or run main layout method on this. Yeah. Now it's a binding which we are doing. There is some small typos here and there. Now, whenever the main function is called, I want to call the render as well. Now, this is where the reagent core is not available and is required. So this will require me to restart my REPL. I'll just disconnect from the REPL and restart it. I think that will be the easier way to do it. Bye. Okay, since I'm not using reagent code, I should maybe comment it. So this is the beautiful thing about Clojure. Just provide a macro, there's a word which is used for this. You just have to provide a macro reader syntax, uh, hash underscore, which will mean that the next set of uh, statements, whichever is coming after this, or the next set of parentheses, will be ignored by the macro reader syntax. Okay. Macro reader literal is what it is called, I believe. But okay, so now it is compiling, and hopefully it will compile fully. And compilation failed. So that was a failure from the previous time when it was not able to find the reagent, because we didn't have the reagent dependency pulled. So now that we have restarted, shadow-cljs automatically pulled dependencies. There are ways you can configure shadow-cljs to pull the dependencies on the fly as well when you are adding, and that's developer uh, REPL reloaded workflow. We'll maybe cover that some other day. Okay, the build is completed. Let's reload and see. Okay, it's loading. And hello YouTube, this is working, updating the root node. Got it. So we reached till here, but one thing which you will notice is that function is not a valid as a React child. This may happen if you return a component, something, something, something. So we did something, and it seems that it didn't work. And I'm guessing it is because I'm just mentioning the function name and I'm not invoking it. Let's reload it and see. Great. Hello YouTube, right? This time it worked. Uh, hello YouTube from main layout. And just to confirm that it is rendering from the section, right? So now the function is also getting loaded. If you will look into the source code of this, so there's the root node where the div which we have added got added, and this is the existing div which we have added. Now, what we really need is that this board should be dynamically rendered. These div which are of the box should also be rendered on the fly. So one thing I will do is that maybe I'll carve out. I'll create another file, say board.cljs, okay, and I'll go. All these are not needed. Maybe this is needed. Right now, no other dependencies are required. I'll create my FN board layout. And in the board layout, I'm saying that this is a div. So now there are multiple ways to define it. I can define a class by the class name, which in this case is, I'll try board. So I'll use one of the other hiccup syntax, which in this case, board dot something is the class name. Sorry, div dot board. So div is the tag and board is the class here. And this is going to define a board where I'm going to display certain div where the class. I'm not sure if it is. I don't 100% recall if it is slash colon class or something, but let's see. And I'll just call it 2-3 times and we'll see if I can. So we just need to import that package as well, which is 15 puzzle board as board. And I would say that I will call board slash main board, right? Board hyphen layout. Okay, something happened. Yeah, something happened. 1, 2, 3 came. Now there is something which is happening here, and we have to look whether these things are working properly or not. We should comment the existing one and see what is happening. So we are having a board where 1, 2, 3 is getting displayed using the board layout, right? Now we have to just make it dynamic. Now this can be done dynamically in multiple ways. One is I know the board size which need to be generated. So maybe I should create it as let's see. Okay. So I will do a for binding for this, and I will say for each box in range till 16, 0 to 16 it has to go. Okay. It should do something like this, where it will render boxes. Let's see what happens. And awesome, this worked. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14. Right? That worked. Now there is some warning which is coming. Every element in the sequence have a unique key. So we have to provide some unique key to it. And there are, again, two ways to define this key. One is reader, which is key and the box. This will tell the compiler that attach the key on the fly, and the error is gone now. Now this need to happen whenever you are doing for comprehensions or these kind of expansions, right? Uh, need to So React basically needs a unique identifier so that it becomes easier for React to update a specific element in the DOM, list of elements in the DOM, right? Got it. So this is done. Now I have a box, a board which is created. There are a couple of more things which we need to do in this. I'm just thinking what should be the next one we should update. And to make things simple, it will be a good idea if I attach some action to all of these numbers, right? Or even before that, I think we should just hide the 0. So whenever there's a 0, we don't need it because we know that number in a box should be 1 to 15. So this can be done in again 2 ways. I'm just thinking which will be the neater way to do it. Let's try the let one. So we'll start with this. So if box is equal to 0, then display this, else you display the box number. Let's see. And this is done. Instead of hash, we can, instead of hyphen, we can also have the empty space just to show that that is an empty box, right? Now we have the numbers. These numbers should also be shuffled. Okay, which means that we have to, I think it's time we should create a database. We should create a database. And in that database, we should start adding, in this case, all these are tiles. Let's have these tiles with shuffle logic, shuffle and range 16. That looks good. And someone need to access only tiles from the DB. Now we have all the tiles available and they are randomly arranged as well. That's really good. Yeah, so far working good. Now we should attach some event listener to each of the boxes because whenever someone is clicking on a box, I want to see which box is clicked, right? Now to attach an event listener, there are 2 ways to go about it. One is simply you can mention that whenever you are doing an on click on a specific tile, you invoke some function. So in this case, I have a div. Let's define on click function for it. And I'll say tile click is the function and it will pass the box as the Okay, sorry, I have not defined the tile flip. Let's define the tile flip as well. Define tile flip, and it takes some box ID. And to keep things simple, we'll just go the old approach, which is tile length, and then we say the box ID, right? So we have attached an on-click event listener. Hopefully that is 15, 4, 12, 7, 1, 13, 0. That's great. Great. So now